Hey guys, welcome back. So today on Modern Masters Auto, we are taking the beloved E63 Coupe, which started life as an E550 NA Coupe with a 5 liter, and we put in a 6.3 liter hand-built M156 engine from AMG. We put it in there, has AMG transmission, AMG coating. We've done all of that. The car is one of one. It's just phenomenal. But today, we are going to be pulling out the torque converter AMG trans and put in an MCT transmission from the newer model AMGs. Now, once we do that, we will be utilizing a brand new wet clutch from Mercedes, and then we will be showing you guys how to appropriately service and fill the 722.9 transmission. This is for all of them. All the fills are the same. So we're gonna teach you how to do that because again, I'm seeing you guys doing it wrong online, on the forums, on Facebook, on Instagram. So I want you guys to pay attention to how we put in the TCU and conductor plate and pay attention to how we fill this transmission. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right guys, so I went ahead and took off all of the undershields, and our first step is to get this transmission drained. So you're gonna pop off the drain plug here, and there's 2 steps to draining it. So you're gonna let it drain just like normal, any other transmission. And once this slows down, we can pop the plastic leveler in there off. So these transmissions have this plastic standpipe in the pan. So we're going to pop it off with a screwdriver from that hole there. So what that does is it allows, when the engine's running, fluid will be rising to this point and then spill out. And that's how you set the level of the transmission. You take that plug out with the engine running and fill it until it slowly drips into this and pours out that hole there. And that's how you know it's full. So now that we're down to a trickle, we'll stick a screwdriver up in here on the side. We'll feel for that plastic. And you just pop it up and let all of the fluid drain the rest of the way out of the transmission. All right, now we're down to a trickle. We'll put the plug back in here. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and get the drive shaft out of the way first. Okay, and before we can get all of these bolts out of here, we need to get the transmission in neutral. So you could either put it in neutral before you put the car up in the air, or what I like to do is, since it's coming out anyway, I'll get my pick tool, open this linkage here, and I'll just pop this clip back and off of the linkage there. Ta-da! And now we can pull this shift linkage back and out of the way, and we can just manually put the transmission in neutral. So now we can spin this and we can get to all the bolts. And we'll go ahead and get the transmission supported, and it doesn't go high enough, so I'm going to lift the lift down a little bit more. And now I like to get this bar out of the way. It makes it much easier to get to the back of the nuts that hold the drive shaft on. Okay, now that we have a nice clear shot at the back of the nuts here. And sometimes that drive shaft will stick on there pretty good. So I just get a pry bar in between the back of the yoke of the transmission and then that rubber insulator. And just pop that loose. And I'll just keep spinning this around until I get all 4 of those pegs loose. Okay, so now that this is free, we can just slide it back off of the transmission. And now we can start taking off the torque converter bolts. Okay, so now we just need to take off our little inspection cover here. And I already have a ratchet on the front crank bolt, and I'm just gonna feel in here with my fingers while I rotate the engine. See if I can get these bolts to line up. So we have our bolts lined up. And then, so we'll just keep rotating around until we get until the next set. so now if I reach in here, the torque converter spins freely. We got all 6 bolts out. Now we can move on to the bell housing bolts. Go ahead and get these trans cooler lines out of the way. And I'll go ahead and get these oxygen sensor connectors out of the way too. So with those out of the way, I went ahead and broke these loose with a wrench earlier. We can go ahead and take out the lower bell housing bolts. You could probably try and squeeze an electric ratchet or something in here, but with the trans jack in the way, I think it's easier just to use a ratchet wrench and take them out with your fingers once they get loose enough. All right, I might be able to get an impact on that one actually. There should be enough room. So now that the lower ones are out of the way, we're going to unplug the TCU connector so we don't risk damage of that. And I'm going to lower the transmission so that we can get to those upper bolts a little easier. All right, that should be enough. And if not, we'll just lower a little bit more later. All right, so I have my super duper long extension that runs the whole way back behind the transmission. And I'm gonna work my way around here and try and get all of these bell housing bolts loosened. And it's kind of hard to show you guys with this exhaust out of the way, but there was not enough room to put a V-band up here just with the body of this car. So it's gonna stay on there. So I got a couple more to get on this side. I think I am got to lower the transmission a little bit more to get to the very top ones, but I'm gonna try to get all the other ones that I can get to out of the way first. All right, so I did lower the transmission some more. Hopefully that gives me enough room to get these top ones out. I might have to switch to a different extension, but let's get these out of here. All right. Okay, so now that all the bolts are out, it is now time to wrestle the transmission out of here. Make sure the torque converter still spins free, which it does. And I like to jack it back up so it's a little bit more level. That way when it breaks free, it doesn't try to slide down off of the trans jack. So give it a little wiggle back and forth. Make sure your drive shaft is out of the way, which it looks like I think I need to take the rubber insulator out. Give me another inch of room to get the transmission back, and then it should come right out of there. Okay, with that rubber insulator off the drive shaft, looks like I have plenty of room to now start dropping the trans. Just doing a second check, make sure I didn't forget to unplug anything. I did forget to show you guys, there is a ground here that goes up to the body. You definitely want to unbolt that. Let's make sure none of these oxygen sensors are rubbing here. That looks good. This side looks clear, so it looks like we're good to start lowering the transmission. And we'll shift it back a little bit more now that we're clearing the drive shaft a little bit better. All right, nice and slow. All right, guys, here it is. Very easy transmission to remove. I'm gonna go ahead and go get the new transmission ready to go back in. I'll get someone to help me lift this off of here, and we'll get the new one installed.
So we're putting the new transmission in, but to do that, we have a new wet clutch to unbox. We have the coated and ready to go TCU. We have a new fill plug part number right there. Ka-chow. We have some new pan bolts. We have some new valve body bolts, and we have a new filter. There's the part number. Hengst, which is OEM. We like that one. Anthony hooked us up from Euro Motor Cars and delivered this to us. You can see his little name right there. And yeah, we got a new wet clutch here. What's in the box? Rusty, what's in the box? Urgh. What's in the box?
Paper.
Why was he freaking out in that movie about the box?
I don't know.
What was in the box? Was it somebody's head or something? You know what I'm talking about? That movie with, it was Leonardo DiCaprio, I think. No, it wasn't. It was the guy from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. What guy is that?
Oh, you're a movie guy.
I know, he had blonde hair. He's not Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the other blonde hair guy. He was on Ocean's 11 and 12. And Angelina Jolie and him, like, were hitting it off. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt? It was Brad. Yep, it was Brad Pitt. What's in the box?
I'll show you with the box. What was in the box? What's in the box? Not till you give me the What's in the box?
Look at this beautiful thing here. Look at this. Oh, it's oily. It's very oily. But look at that. Look at that. Let's see. Oh, it makes some noise. There's some stuff moving around there. All right, cool. That thing's ready to go. My hands are dirty. Cool. Let's get this transmission. Let's get it ready. Let's throw the new wet clutch in it, and let's get it back up in this car and out of my shop.
All right, let's go ahead and install this new wet clutch. I'm gonna make sure it's seated the entire way, so give it a few jiggles. I believe it has to go down one more step. Okay, that should be it there. And I'll go ahead and line it up with the orientation of the flywheel. So we're gonna want it right about there. Okay, so transmission is installed. It's nice and flush once I push on the back here, but before you tighten the first bolt, always make sure the torque converter or wet clutch moves freely. You don't want any kind of tension on there before you tighten the bolts, or you can risk cracking the pump of the transmission. Alright, so I have all the housing bolts started. Now I just need to tighten all of them up with my mile-long extension. One more on the very top. Alright, so start getting our bolts in here. I got those in there. Let's get our linkage back on. Slide our retaining clip in here. And now we're good to get our brace back on here, so we can get this trans jack out of our way. All right, next step is to get our wet clutch bolts back in there. Then we need to switch out our TCU so that everything works. All right, guys, I went ahead and reinstalled my transmission cooler lines, and now it is time to get the flywheel bolts back in. So what I like to do is the first ones I just kind of put in there loosely, and I'll spin the crank till it brings it around to the next set. And then once I get all of them in, then I'll go around and start tightening them. That way I can make sure they're all in there square. I don't end up cross-studding any bolts, anything like that. So the same thing I'm gonna feel for that next set that come this way. And since this is the last group, I can go ahead and tighten them the whole way. And now I'll just go another rotation, and I'll tighten the others the rest of the way. And put our dust cover back in there. All right, so now I'm gonna drop the pan, and we're going to get our pre-coated TCU in there, and we can fill it up and get all this dangly stuff out of the way. All right, let's go ahead and get this pan down. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this valve body out of here. All right guys, now we're gonna put our TCU on the valve body. I like to take this time to clean the clutch material that is built up on the magnet that goes on the manual level here. Everything else is already pretty clean. And then I like to take a little bit of our dielectric grease. We're gonna lubricate these two O-rings here. That way it pops up into the transmission case nice and easy. So there's a couple Torx bolts that hold the TCU down to the valve body itself. All right, snug these up by hand. Now we can get our shift solenoids in here. And they are slotted, so you can't mess it up. It will not let you put them in the wrong spot. So you find its home. And before we get the caps on, we're going to route our harness for the wet clutch solenoid right here. Snap that in, and then we can bolt these down. There we go, now we are ready to go back up into the transmission. Alright guys, so we're going to put the valve body back up in there, and I see a lot of people mess this up. So be sure that the little tab here for the level selector goes into the tab here. So when you move it in and out of park, reverse drive, yada yada, it needs to be able to contact this. Otherwise, it won't do anything when you go to start it. So just make sure it's lined up. Let me get a socket real quick, Joey. All right, so I got to tilt it back towards you a little bit to get over top of this sensor. There we go. All right, you got hold of it? Okay. There is that black tube that's on top of the valve body. You got to jostle around a little bit, make sure that goes up into the body of the transmission. Don't force it, don't crush it. But now I can go ahead and get all these bolts in here. We do have new bolts, and that way we can torque all of them. So I'm just gonna run them down with my little electric ratchet, and then I'll go behind them and torque them all to spec. Okay guys, it's time to torque these bolts. You're gonna start with 4 Newton meters and then a 90-degree turn on all of them.
Nothing good. I went to the doctor. Nothing good.
All right, and now we just do our 90.
Looking good. How many 90s do you got to do?
All of them?
Oh, we don't mark them anymore as we go?
No.
He's above the rest of us, folks. He's above the rest of us, folks.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
All right, last thing before we move on to the filter is the detent spring. This is what gives you that resistance when you're shifting through the gears. Otherwise it just flops around. Come on, there we go. So you have that locking tab there, the pin. You're gonna put this up in. There you go. And now we can pop in our new filter. And I'll go clean this pan up and get it ready for the gasket. All right, so we have our new gasket here. We have our new plastic level thing. So you're gonna snap that on there. I'll go ahead and get the gasket ready. And I went and wiped this out and sprayed it out. Make sure the magnets were cleared off of any kind of debris or clutch material. There we go. Now we just gotta put it back on the trans and torque the bolts down for that also. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this pan back up in here. Remember, we have new bolts that hold the pan in because they are torqued to yield. So I'm just gonna loosely put 2 on here just to hold the pan up for me. Okay. And now we torque them. Okay, the torque spec for the pan is very similar to the valve body. It is 4 Newton meters, but then it is a 180-degree turn afterwards. So this is why it's very important to have these new bolts, because they will stretch. So the 4 Newton meters is barely anything at all. And I'm not even gonna set up the torque wrench for the 180. I'm just gonna do a 180. So here, let me shut this thing off. So 180. Just make sure you're not doing any of these twice, because it'll snap that bolt right off of there. All right, pan is torqued. I'll go ahead and plug in the connector for the TCU while I'm here. Then I need to put this bracket up that holds the connectors for the oxygen sensors, and we can pump some fluid in this thing and see how she works. All right guys, I have my transmission fill fluid pumper apparatus filled with 6.5 liters of liquid moly 1900. I did put a little extra in there just because that wet clutch is dry. So I usually put 6 liters in for just a regular service, and about a liter that comes out after you fill everything up. So it should be plenty to fill everything up there. So you're going to start with taking this plug out, and then we're going to insert our adapter, and this is going to allow us to pump fluid in from the bottom. And remember that plastic insert in the pan is going to keep the level for us. So all we need to do is fill it up and then put it down, start it, let it come up to operating temperature, and then once I pull this plug off of here, the fluid will run down into its level, and then you're all good. So I just need to add some air here, and we just pump it up. All right, before I get too carried away, I am going to reinstall this bracket and the ground strap that goes here on the side of the trans before I start it. If you do ever do a trans swap on these, or even a service, and it won't start afterwards, we see a lot of times where people forget to put that ground back on the side here that goes to the body and the trans. You will have almost no power to anything, it won't crank. So just make sure you have a good connection on that before you spend too much time guessing on anything else. But I'm gonna throw that on there, and then I'll put it down and start it, and we'll teach in that wet clutch. Okay, let's see if it will start up before we do any of the teach-in. I just want to get the level and everything straightened out. Oh! Okay. Alright, so I am getting a message. Looks like I need to do a teach-in on this. So let me grab the scan tool, and we will do that. Okay guys, so I just taught in the TCU as normal. I thought things would go a little differently, but the coating was done a different way this time, so it's fine. So now I'm going to start it up. We're going to do the adaptation of the wet clutch, and this will tell us if everything is going to work. I'm still getting a very angry message on the dash about the transmission, even though everything has been taught in already, so I'm hoping this is the last step I need to do. So let's go to adaptation. So we need to have the transmission temperature fully warmed up, which is good because I still need to check the level anyway. So we'll kill two birds with one stone. So I'll go ahead and let this warm up for a little bit. I'll show you guys how to check the fluid level, and then we'll put it back down and we will go through the startup and adaptation of the wet clutch. All right guys, we're up to temp. You see we're sitting at 120 degrees Fahrenheit for the transmission fluid, and it's been running for about, I don't know, 10 minutes. I got both doors open so that I don't die. Now we can put the car up in the air and check the fluid level. Okay, so with the engine still running and up to temp, all you're going to do is pull off this adapter and some fluid is going to run out. So we're going to let that run out until it comes to a dribble. And so basically what you're doing is you're letting the transmission fluid expand with the temperature, the normal operating temperature, and that's when you want to level it, because otherwise what's going to happen is you would have all this extra fluid in here and it would be overfilled if you did not let it come to full temperature. And this fluid does expand a lot. I've had a lot of people where they just put the 6 liters in or whatever, where they check it when it's cold. They go out and do a couple pulls in the interstate, and it actually pushes the fluid out of the vent on top of the transmission because it expands so much, and it will have a big smoke show and go in the exhaust and everything. So once you see it start trickling just like this, you're good to take this adapter off. And then we can go ahead and plug it back up. All right, now let's see if we can continue the adaptation of the wet clutch. I'm very excited to see whether or not this works, considering none of this is supposed to be in this car. So let's see. So we need to turn the engine off. So now this is going to teach you the engagement point of the wet clutch. So we need to start the engine. It says make sure air conditioning is off, which it is. Put it into drive. And of course, it's 100 degrees in here and I can't have the AC on. And it's taking forever. Forever.
Three days later.
The procedure was not completed successfully. How did I know? All right, so I think we need some more coating adjusted, so we'll get that taken care of. That's gonna be it for today's video. Everything works. All the gears work, reverse works. It just needs that wet clutch coated in there a little bit more, but that's it. That's all I'm gonna do today anyway. Surprise! I'm back. We got the coating straightened out a little faster than I thought we would. You can see that we don't have that red screen up here anymore. So everything has been taught in and coded correctly. But we still have this pesky flashing C for the mode button down here. So we're going to now try and adapt the wet clutch, and hopefully it goes through this time. So luckily our transmission is still nice and warmed up, so I don't have to wait for that. So turn this off, key on. All right, so put it into drive like last time. Continue. Really hope this doesn't take 10 minutes like last time. That was terrible. I feel it pulsing, but it's not nearly as aggressive as the last one we did. Oh boy, I think we're good to go. Oh, that's so cool. So a successful install of a wet clutch trans into a E550 Coupe. The C stopped flashing. I don't think we have functionality of Sport Plus or anything just yet. This is still pretty cool. So I'm gonna go out and take this thing for a drive, but that's gonna be it for today's video. I'm just glad we got it wrapped up in the same video. So this is awesome.
All right, guys, well, that wraps that up. I hope you guys liked the 63 Coupe, the E63 Coupe. I hope you guys learned today how to appropriately replace the TCU. I hope you guys learned the appropriate way to fill the 722.9 transmission. Don't do it like other people. Do it the correct way. And if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up.
Share with your friends.
And subscribe. And most importantly, leave a comment about my best friend, Rusty Eugene Baker, in the comments. And also, tell me how you like that tight shirt on me. I mean, I feel like I was really muscle bound. I'm telling you, once I lose this weight, woo, ladies are gonna be coming. But anyway, have a good one. Testing, 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 audio, visual.
Everything went normally. John, go home. The light's on. Why are you the only person that can never understand this? No, just go. Go away. I'm tired of, I'm constantly trying to teach you the same that I teach everybody else. I can't do it anymore. Hello?
I was good on all
Yeah, I can talk.
Yada, yada, yada. Talk about the car. Say goodbye. Rusty says share with friends. All right, cool. What are you doing?
The people need me. This is the last time I'm gonna be nice to you about this, John.